What's up? What's up? Man, I realized I was not as prepared as I usually am going into these streams. And it didn't dawn on me until right before things were supposed to get started. But, what's up? What's up? Took last week off. But, we back now. How y'all doing? How y'all doing? Just gonna give it a few minutes. Just gonna hit up the broadcast channel. If you are not part of the broadcast channel on Instagram at the 1430 podcast, make sure you go ahead and subscribe to the broadcast channel. I have not gotten a haircut. I have not shaven my beard or anything. But I'm good. Nothing. I know, like, the last couple streams, I was telling y'all that life was, beating my ass and shit. But, it's been good, actually. I've been really locked in trying to get this album done. All of the vocals except for one song is recorded, like, my vocals. So I'm still waiting on, like, features and shit from pretty much everybody but two. Shout out to Viridian and my boy Alchemist. Not the Alchemist, my boy Pierce. Like, I appreciate y'all. Appreciate y'all sending your stuff in. But now, so we just in the mix of the mastering process, and I've been just really locked in on that the last 2 weeks. So I'm excited. It's coming together finally. It's been a journey already. And we not even into, like, the real meat and potatoes of this shit. But, I feel good. I'm be real. Like, I kind of announced this stream, like, very last second. Because I honestly didn't know if I was going to be streaming today. But I've been really trying to make an effort to be consistent. And I didn't want to leave y'all in the lurch like 2 weeks in a row, or didn't want to like not stream 2 weeks in a row. So I was like, all right, we gonna do this one. Plus, this is one that I've been really looking forward to, despite people not responding to the prompt. I was just like, fuck it. I just wanted to do a stream. I said either we was just gonna do something random and just talk about some random shit, or we could just do the tier list. And I decided, I'm gonna do the tier list. Fuck it, I really like, rankings and tier lists and shit. Like, I don't really like to review albums for the most part. I just, because I'm an artist, especially like stuff that's coming out around, like, recent stuff, just because I feel like I'm being biased. I'm grading it on, like, how I would do shit and stuff like that. And, that's not, to me, that's not really fair when you're actively making music. I could probably talk about some old shit, but I'm probably not going to be able to give an accurate assessment to some shit that just came out. But, I can talk about some old shit, but, like, rankings and stuff, like talking about people's catalogs and shit, I think that's fun. There's this dope YouTube channel that kind of gave me the idea. They're not doing tier lists, but they kind of gave me the idea of doing something like this. It's called Culturalist Theory. I might even put the link to the channel in the description of this video once the stream is done. I'm very terrible about that, though, so don't wait on that. I'll try my best to do it. Matter of fact, let me see if I put it in the chat. If I put it in the chat, then I won't forget. But yeah, like they're like one of my favorite new YouTube channels out right now. Just because even if I don't agree with their rankings all the time, like I really think, just the conversation itself is like really dope. So, and it had me thinking like, even like how some of the best rappers have the worst, have a bad album, or because especially when you get into double digits like album catalog, and you've been doing this for decades, you bound to stumble. Like even the goats, even the greatest, are bound to stumble every once in a while. So I thought it would be like an interesting conversation to have, especially like after going through, because I had a few people, send me suggestions. Like when I asked the question, like, what are the worst albums from the best rappers? And I got some interesting answers. But for I only got a few, and then I went on and just looked at like how people ranked catalogs and shit like that. And it was like just from what I was seeing and what I was hearing from people, it was like really interesting, like some of the albums, because I went back and I went and listened to a few of them. Some of them I knew offhand, and then some of them I hadn't listened to in forever. Full disclosure, this is all my opinion. I like I said, I went, I had some people throwing some suggestions, and then I looked at some articles and stuff, but at the end of the day, like I still, put this together based on my opinion and how I felt about, each person's catalog and stuff like that. So, if you agree, cool. If you disagree, that's cool too, because at the end of the day, it's just my opinion. It really ain't going off of too much else. What the final say so of this is. And also too, I only did rappers that have 3 or more albums in their catalog. I don't want to penalize somebody that only got to drop twice. So I wouldn't put Big on here, for example. He only had 2 albums to come out during his lifetime. Really, only one while he was alive. It was already complete, so I still count Life After Death. And then he just had a bunch of posthumous albums that just threw some old verses over some new beats and stuff like that. So I wouldn't come at, wouldn't put somebody like Big like that in an example. Also, I only do group. I only did solo artists. So no groups. Maybe I might do some like because Havoc and Prodigy from Mobb Deep, for example, got a lot of like solo projects, or like Big Boy got a bunch of solo projects. I didn't dive into those. I only really picked 10 artists, and those are only really the 10 that just kind of came to mind when thinking about this. But maybe I'll do groups and duos and shit like that later. But I'm only sticking to solo rappers for this one, and I only did 10, just because when you get to talking about music, you get to talk about albums and shit like that. Especially for me, like somebody who loves talking about music, I know I could get very long winded, and I could be sitting here talking to y'all forever. So, and I didn't want to do that with like 15, 20 albums. We'd be here for 2 or 3 hours, and I just ain't trying to stream like that right now. Hold on, I'm just checking the Instagram or the YouTube feed just to see. I see I got a couple people watching. Make sure you say what's up in the chat, because I definitely want to get people's feedback on this. I want to get people's feedback on this because, I got a few controversial picks on there. Like I looked at articles, a lot of the articles said the same thing, and then some of them I didn't really agree with. What I thought like this person's worst album was. So it's gonna be interesting when y'all hear some of my a little bit more controversial takes when it comes to that. But speaking of talking about, music and albums, I like to kind of give flowers at the beginning of my streams and stuff, and then we're gonna get into it. I promise. Uh, but before we get into it, I just want to give a shout out to Sanfa. I won't get into too much detail. He just put out a new album this past Friday, an album that I was anticipating, and then it dropped on Friday, and I literally downloaded everybody else's album but that one because it just completely slipped my mind. But I listened to it yesterday when I was driving to Night Deal to pick up some food and then bring it back to the crib. And when I tell you this might be like an album that I connected with on such an emotional level, just from everything from the songwriting to the production to the performances by Salfa and the other artists, either featured or, providing background vocals or whatever. Everybody, it was just such a beautiful album. Such a beautiful album in every aspect. Like, I've been a big Salfa fan. And you know what it is? I think, and I won't get into it too much because I really want y'all to listen to it. If y'all, if y'all really rock with it, because I know he's not everybody's cup of tea, but like I really, really enjoy his music, and I just feel like just sometimes music can hit you at the right time, and it really resonates with you. Like this album sounds like the fall, so I'm driving. I'm watching the trees. Some of the trees are changing colors, and I see leaves falling, and it's just the crisp, like fall breeze in the air. Like it's not too cold, it's not hot. It just feels so comfortable. It feels so nice. Like when I tell you this album put me in such a good mood that I hate driving, and there was two accidents on my way there, one on my way there and one on my way back that had traffic stalled. I missed my exit because I got distracted by a chair, like a wooden chair that was stuck. I'm driving on like 264. A chair fell off somebody's truck or something, and it's in the middle, like somebody's kitchen, like a wooden kitchen dining room chair. It's just in the middle, and then like it threw me off because I'm watching other cars and then trying to avoid that thing while still not trying to hit somebody else. I missed my exit, so I had to do the whole U-turn thing on the next exit over, and it was just like those type of situations like really get under my skin. Because I hate driving. I hate being on the road. I'd much rather be a passenger or taking any other mode of transportation other than a car. But even with all that shit going on, the album is so, filled me with so much good, put me in such a good mood and a good spirit that all that shit did not bother me. I was happy because I was able to sit down. I was able to be in the car a little bit longer and to finish the album. That's how great this album is. I won't get into it too much. It's just it resonated with me on a personal and emotional level that I can't really think of too many albums. Like you got albums that you really love and you enjoy, but there's few times where it's like it hits you right here. Like I feel like I'm there. I feel like wherever he's talking about, this is exactly what I'm going through, and I'm it just kind of puts shit in perspective. I don't really know what else to say. I'm probably not even conveying my praise and stuff for this album as succinctly as I want to, but I just want to say thank you. Shout out to Sanfa for this album because I really love it and I really appreciate it. But yeah, all right. So yeah, I laid down the ground rules, gave flowers. So now we about to get into this tier list. So let me pull this up. I use this site. that I found. I was just gonna do it with a, a PNG folder, picture or something. But I decided, nah, I'm gonna go ahead and just use a tier list. So I picked 10 albums from 10 artists, and it's like what I think is the worst album in their catalog, right? So because at the last podcast, the last live stream, we talked about Drake, I think we should start with Drake. Regardless of how you may feel about Drake, regardless of what you feel about the ghostwriting allegations and things like that, and whether or not he qualifies for the GOAT conversation or whatever, like you got to give that man his props. Like, not only has he been putting out some of the best music, maybe not with his most recent projects, but throughout his career since his debut, he's been putting out some of the best music we've heard the last couple decades. The end of the 2000s, 2010s. And honestly, even with his new album, which I'm not a big of a fan of, there's still some like great songs on there. It's just not enough to save the album. But so I included him because I do feel like he's a great rapper. I do feel like he has those moments that he does have those bars that really like there's not too many people that can write what he writes. But this album right here shows that he can't do everything. Honestly, never mind. And this album, and mind you, regardless of the bullshit, especially from recently, I'm a Drake fan. And even when his other albums like CLB and Scorpion had disappointed me, I'm still like tuned in. Oh, he's dropping he's dropping a dance album. That was the rumor going on. And I'm gonna be real. Even the album cover kind of should have like gave us a heads up that this album probably, because it kind of looks, the album cover itself just kind of looks like rushed and put together. Because the rumor was that the album was kind of rushed out because they didn't want to put it out after Beyonce's Renaissance. I don't know if that's true or not. That was just the rumor that I heard. But everything about this album feels rushed. Like, it's not only is it underwritten, underperformed, like some of the songs feel like gibberish. Like, it feels like these are like I'm freestyling, trying to come up with an idea, and so I'm like might mumble to myself to just kind of get the rhythm and stuff, and then like fill in the words. Well, some of it just kind of sounds like it's the first draft and we're just gonna roll with that, and it sounds like it sounds like it's a it's unfinished. And even on the production end, like some of the mastering, some of the processing on the vocals, like it just doesn't sound finished. It doesn't sound like it was really. I mean, and this is a guy, and this is like Drake, like 10 albums in at this point. Like, this is a guy that has all the money and the resources in the world to work. Like, that's what a lot of I think Fantano and Sean C said. Well, this guy has all of the tools and the resources to work with some of the best producers in this field. He could, get the best writers. He could get, he could get the best producers, engineers, whatever that could, help him craft a great album in this lane. But like he kind of like half-assed it. Like, the one thing I will say is that I will give Drake props. First of all, Sticky is dope. Sticky is dope. Jimmy Cooks is cool, but the thing is, it's a good song, but it just kind of highlights how much effort could be put into what he's used to and comfortable with versus this album that doesn't really feel, the rest of the album that doesn't really feel like a lot of like thought and real effort was put into any of the songs where you're trying to branch out into this new genre. So that's the only thing about Jimmy Cooks that kind of like it kind of highlights the flaws in the rest of the album to me. Um, but I will give him props for at least attempting something different. Like one of the criticisms about For All the Dogs and not Jimmy Cooks, For All the Dogs and CLB is that a lot of his stuff it sounds, run of the mill, like copy and paste from everything else we've heard from Drake. So I will give him props to a certain extent that he at least thought to change it up a little bit, but the execution was just really bad, and that's kind of a theme you're gonna find with a lot of these albums on this tier list. So I'm gonna put this in the garbage. Cause I didn't really go over that. So I got great album, which is the S tier. A is good but not great. Could be better, meh. Bad but not trash, and garbage. And I'm definitely putting the honestly never mind in the garbage pile. It's an album besides Sticky, which it kind of just shows that Drake is better in his rapping bag. And if he did an album like that, but it was a little bit more rap focused and less singing focused, and it had actual focus, I really think he would excel. And I think that's the part that disappoints me, because Drake in this field could be great, but he would need to actually put in the effort to make it great. All right, so yeah. So where we gonna go? Okay, yeah, let's do this one. Now this one, so Nas. Now the thing is, and Nas has been in the game since 91, and it's 2023. I was really having a hard time picking which album I thought was the worst. And this is kind of how I processed it, right? Because Nas is one of my, if not my goat. Like he might be the goat. I still haven't really decided. In my eyes, I don't really believe in the goat thing at all. Like if we're being serious, but if I had to pick somebody, it would be Nas. It would be Nas, or it probably would be Nas. He kind of just fits every category to me. From consistency, longevity, just the like quality of material majority of the time that he's given us. Like it just lyrical ability, all of that shit. Classics. Like it's all of that to me is why Nas is one of the best ever. But he does have some stinkers in his catalog. I don't know if I mentioned this, but I also said I'm not doing collab albums. It's not relevant for Nas because I love the collab album with Damian Marley, the Distant Relatives. I think that is highly underrated. But that's just one of the caveats I may not have mentioned earlier. But when I was thinking of it, so my first thought was the Lost Tapes too, just because that I hated that one. But the Lost Tapes, in essence, is just a bunch of throwaways or album songs that did not make other albums. And the rumor was that he was basically trying to get out of his old deal, and he needed one more album to satisfy that, so he just threw that one out there. And you could kind of tell there was no videos, there was no real promotion. It just kind of dropped out of nowhere. So I didn't want to pick Lost Tapes because it's not meant to be. Even though the first Lost Tapes is legendary, like this, the no Lost Tapes 2, it was just in essence throwaways. Then I thought about I Am and Nostradamus, which I went back and listened to those albums. I don't hate them as much as people hate them. Like, are they, like, they don't stack up to It Was Written and of course not Illmatic. But like as time is going on, I don't know. Those albums just aren't as bad as to me as people make them out to be. And plus, the whole story about how that album got leaked and they had to kind of scrap a bunch of shit. I kind of take stuff like that into account too. And like I said, I enjoyed it, so it wasn't as bad as I originally thought. I thought it was going to be going into it. And then Streets Disciples, which just a rule of thumb, um, double albums are tricky, yo. Double albums are tricky in general. Like you either gonna get a Life After Death or All Eyes on Me, and even those albums have songs that don't really need to be there. So even in the best examples, it's really hard to pull off a double album. But at its worst, you just gonna get like a big chunk of shit. Like that's why I feel like it's going back to Drake. Scorpion, if you trim the fat, is an amazing album. It just has a lot of shit that don't need to be there. And that's kind of how I felt about Streets Disciples. I feel like, yeah, there's some really weak moments on there, but there's a lot of great on there. I think it's called Just a Moment. I can't remember the name of that song. That's one of my favorite Nas songs ever. And there's a lot of joints like that are like high quality. It's just a lot of fluff. So I didn't want to talk about that one, but with this one, it was very disappointing. It's very like missed opportunity. Like before this album, the idea of Nas and Kanye coming together to do a album where Kanye's producing it. It sounds amazing on paper. And I remember when Kanye was rolling out this whole like 7 albums, 7 songs, idea that he had. This was really the album that I was the most excited for. Like, Kids See Ghosts was dope. We'll get into Ye in a little bit. Daytona was dope. And Tiana Taylor's was another one where it could have been so much better. But this one was really everything from Nas's performance on a lot of those songs, the production being very subpar for Kanye standards, and it wasn't good. It just wasn't. Besides the beat on Cop Shot the Kids, like the best thing I could say about the album is that the beat on Cop Shot the Kids was dope, but I don't remember anything else. And it just kind of goes to show, like, from Nas's run with Hit Boy, that Nas can still go. He just needs the right dance partner. And I just don't think Kanye was it. With that being said, though, like, I wonder, where do I rank this one? I'm gonna be real. I'm gonna stick it. I'm gonna stick it in trash. It's not, honestly, Nevermind bad. But just like Honestly Nevermind, I felt like it was a very like, if it had a little bit more focus, I really don't think the 7-song idea fit for Nas. So I think if it was just a little longer, had a little bit more focus, and they took their time with it, I think it could have been great. But like, there's nothing on, except for like maybe the beat on Cop Shot the Kids. But even when Nas and Kanye are rapping, I really don't like. I'm really not zoned in on it. Speaking of Kanye, let's go with, this is one of my controversial picks. I'm not a fan of Ye. I am not a fan of the Ye album. Now, everybody knows how I feel about Kanye at this point. Ever since, MAGA hat Kanye, slavery was a choice Kanye, just going completely nuts Kanye. I've been kind of off the Kanye bandwagon, but I can never deny his, his contributions to music. And Kanye has one of the greatest rap catalogs ever. Actually, just period. Music, period. He has one of the best music catalogs, period. There's very little to pick apart on Kanye, uh, in Kanye's discography. To be honest, because the only other contender for worst Kanye album to me would have been Donda 2. But I think that had more to do with it being unfinished, being unaccessible, and just a really crappy way to extort your fans, in my opinion. But to be honest, I never even heard it. So I can't even give an honest opinion because I can't get access to it. So I can't say like definitively, oh, this is a terrible Kanye album because I genuinely don't know. So this was literally the only other album. The one thing I will say about this album, I do feel like, uh, man, what is that song called? There's a song with Ty Dolla Signs on it, and like I literally just listened to it not too long ago, and I can't remember. I can't remember off top of my head. What's the name of this song? Oh no, wait, man. I'm thinking of Kids See Ghosts. Um, okay, so I thought about Killing You. I actually really like that song for some reason. Um, and Ghost Town, I really like Ghost Town. But outside of those two songs, I really don't have a lot of positive things to say about it. If we're being honest, like the one thing you would never really think to hear about a Kanye album is that it is kind of forgettable. But that's kind of how I feel about Ye. Like it's a cool album, but by Kanye standards, it definitely doesn't like meet his standards at all. Um, with that being said, where would I put it? It's definitely not garbage. I actually don't think it's bad. I'm gonna put it in the meh category. Nah, I'm gonna put it in could be better. Cause it's not like there's really nothing outright bad on this album. I think it's just forgettable. Like like a Kanye album is honestly it's usually great, sometimes good, but not great. Like maybe Yeezus or The Life of Pablo. Like those albums I feel like are good, but they're not great, but they're still at like such a high level. But Ye is the only album that just doesn't really meet that level. Doesn't really meet that level for me. Um oh, all right, so we got another controversial one. Now this was one that was voted on the broadcast channel with my boy Jay. Shout out to Jay Breeze. Um, For Your Eyes Only by J. Cole. All right. So this isn't my controversial take, but I included it. But my controversial take is that when you really think about it, J. Cole's album, not his mixtapes, his albums spotty, are kind of spotty at times. Um, like I would say Cole, if it would either be between this one and Cold World, Born Center honestly hasn't aged the best, but I can't take away from how well put together it is, especially for the time. Um, then you got 2014 Forest Hills Drive classic. Can't I'm not taking nothing away from that one. and then it's kind of like strength to strength from that. Like some people don't like KOD. I loved KOD. Um, and of course the new album, um, which that was like the, but he just rapping to me. Like that's the album where it don't feel like an album. It feels more like he just rapping, but it works. So I ain't mad at it. Especially hearing him on other people's shit, like other people's productions, like was a really like nice change of pace from him always producing his own stuff. I like I was saying, it was either this one or Cold World. And the one thing that puts Cold World, the sideline story, over For Your Eyes Only, and that's why I left it in this worst albums ranking, is because this album, like I was talking about with Ye, where I just felt like it was forgettable. There's nothing that I really, if you really think about essential J. Cole, essential like if I was to put together a playlist or a link or just a list in general of the best J. Cole records, the best J. Cole albums, I honestly, I probably could go the entire time without picking any of these songs. The best song on here is the title track, For Your Eyes Only. After that, everything else is just as cool. I wouldn't rush to turn off the radio if it came on. I mean, of course, it's J. Cole. I wouldn't do that. But I honestly wouldn't. I wouldn't grab it. I would definitely want to listen to Forest Hills Drive or KOD or the Off Season or even like that, because there's tracks on the Sideline Story like Work Out. Even if that's the song that let Nas down, it's still a very very dope and enjoyable track. Can't Get Enough with Trey Songz, the joint with Missy. Like, man, there's a bunch of tracks on the Sideline Story that I could go back to. It's just it's just not as memorable as just his other albums. So, but like this is just the forgettable J. Cole album to me. So with that being said, I'll put it one notch below, and I'm gonna just say meh. It's the one album where you take it out of his catalog, and it doesn't really make or break it, to be real. So that's why I'm gonna rank that one where it's at. All right, so where we gonna go now? I threw this one on. Ah, shit. Okay. I keep hitting the wrong thing. Because they don't want me to talk about this album. All right, so this is the one I included, right? Because when I was putting this together, I'm just going off of the first people to come to mind. Of course you got Snoop. I mean, of course you got Jay, you got Ye, you got J. Cole, Lil Wayne, Drake. Those are the names you're just gonna hear about all the time. But when you think about people with great bodies of work, like a great hip hop catalog, people don't tend to talk about Snoop the way they should. Like everybody talks about Doggy Style, everybody talks about RNG, Rhythm and Gangster, because that's the album with Drop It Like It's Hot on it. But when you really think about it, Snoop, especially when he was on his run, rarely, if ever, had a misstep with his albums. Even his newer stuff, like there's nothing really outright bad, except for this album. And this is the one that really surprised me. Like really is surprising when you think about it, because this is the album where Snoop was on a tear. Like Doggy Style, like was out like maybe two years before this, and then a year before that was The Chronic when he made his debut. You would think somebody like Snoop just couldn't miss, and then you would realize later he really couldn't miss. Like, after this album, he was just, even, in uncharted charted territories, like being in the South with No Limit, and then, working with people like Pharrell, and just having this very long and successful career. Snoop really couldn't miss after this, but this was the misstep because of all the turmoil that was going on with Death Row, and of course, Dr. Dre leaving. I can't remember if this was before or after Pac got shot, but it was, it was, if it wasn't when he got shot, it was definitely because of all the tension and turmoil that was going on with him and Suge, and the whole East Coast West Coast beef, and Snoop was just kind of caught in the middle of it. So you could kind of hear maybe his heart just wasn't all the way in it, like, without his mentor, and just kind of being in this very like chaotic environment, this dangerous environment. Like, it just kind of like affected the music. So that's the one thing you can kind of say about this album, but it doesn't hold up. It doesn't hold up. You play this next to Doggy Style, it's like completely night and day. Like, and I'll be real, objectively, there's probably worse albums than this in Snoop's catalog, like just from a like track by track basis. But even the albums you may not be as fond of have some memorable joints on it, or have some enjoyable tracks on it that you might want to go back to. There's nothing on the Dogfather. The only thing you could like, the only good thing about it is that it kind of like you could hear the beginnings of his partnership with Charlie Wilson. But outside of that, like, there's nothing on here. Like, it's definitely the album where if it got removed from his catalog, it would not be missed. I'm gonna put this one in bad but not trash, cause it's 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 not meh, because there are some moments where it's like downright terrible, and there's not really much, if any, good to counteract that. I think it's bad. What I wouldn't call it trash though, because it's still Snoop. It's still Snoop in his prime, even in those, even with all those other factors that affected this album. I would, it's still Snoop at the end of the day. It's still prime Snoop, like Doggy Style, Death Row era Snoop. Like, it can't be complete garbage, but it's just not, it's not good either. So I'm gonna put it in bad. Let me check. Oh, hold on. Yeah, cause let me get on here. Hey, what's up, Pat? I'm just seeing your, when I'm on the share screen thing. I can't see the chat. Yeah, he do got a couple joints. Like the title track on For Your Eyes Only is dope. Um, what's the one with the? I think my neighbors think I'm selling dope. That one is. I'm be real. Neighbors. Yeah, Neighbors is cool. I think the only thing that I like about that song, or that really like makes it memorable, is the story behind it. Because without the story behind it, it's okay. I think the story is definitely like what makes that song more interesting. But I wouldn't call it a good song, or it wouldn't be a memorable song, especially not a J. Cole track. I don't think it'd be that memorable for him. Let me pull up my phone. I want to make sure I catch all of the chat and stuff. But all right, so we gonna get back into it. What we got left? So this is the one. I'm gonna go ahead and get into it. This is the one that when I was putting this together, because there's a lot of people have a lot of shit to say about Kingdom Come, this Blueprint 2. I would also say Volume 3. Volume, the only sin of Volume 3 is that it's the probably his album, Volume 2 or Volume 2, I can't remember. One of those albums, I think it's Volume 2 now I'm thinking about it. It's the albums that haven't really aged the best for a Jay-Z album. But um none of them has been as disappointing to me than the Magna Carta Holy Grail. Now I actually listened to this album again today, and I was trying to see if it still is as bad as I thought it was when it first dropped. Cause I hated this album when it first came out. Like I do this thing with some of my favorites sometimes, where I will desperately try to defend the album. Like I'll be listening to it begrudgingly, trying to be like, nah, man, it just ain't growing on me yet. I'm gonna get to it, but just after a while, you start to realize, nah, this really ain't it. And that's kind of how I felt about this album. Um, let me. Where do we begin? Like, it's definitely an album that is. Cause we talk about albums like, Volume 2, Volume 3, maybe even Blueprint 2, that have not aged particularly well. I feel like this is definitely like a time capsule. There's nothing on here that I would go back to except for On the Run, maybe Crown. Yeah, that might be it. And the only reason why I put this, because I like Kingdom Come. Like, there's not a lot of people that like Kingdom Come. I liked Kingdom Come strictly because I thought Kingdom Come was Jay trying to do something different. And he was trying to be, he's trying to get away from the drug shit. And I'm one of those people that like, just like I did with Drake not too long, like earlier, where when you try something new and you try something different, I will at least give you points with that. Oh shit, I just realized I'm still on the main screen. My bad. Okay, y'all see it now. I had to check the stream real quick and realize I'm still on the main thing. But yeah, I'm talking about the Magna Carta Holy Grail album. So I like Kingdom Come. I'll give him props because he was trying to do something outside of the drug dealer rap and stuff like that. It didn't work, so he went right back to it on American Gangster. There's still some joints on there that I really enjoy though. Even Blueprint 2, which there was an album that Jay famously said was so bad he had to put out the deluxe version like immediately, the 2.5, to try to make up for it. But even with that one, because there's a lot of joints on Blueprint 2 that I really enjoy. On the Run with Bonnie and Clyde. Damn, let me look at it, because I'm trying not to get it confused with 2.5 or 2.1. I thought Hovey Baby was dope. Excuse Me Miss is on that album. The Bounce is on that album. The You Don't Know remix is on that album. Somehow, some way with Benny Siegel and Scarface is on that album. There's still a lot of like great J joints on here, so it's kind of hard for me to call that outright failure. Again, double albums are tricky. He trimmed the fat, put out 2.1, and it's actually a great listen from top to bottom. And what else would people say? I mean, yeah, even with Volume 2 and Volume 3, there's still some joints on there. And even with those albums where I could probably say those albums have not aged the best, the difference between those albums and Magna Carta Holy Grail is that on those other albums, Volume 2 and Volume 3, and even with the Blueprint 2 and Kingdom Come, the most interesting part about this album is Jay-Z. Magna Carta, I feel like Jay's on autopilot. This was the album when I heard it, if Jay decided he didn't want to do music no more, if he because like when he retired with the Black Album, it just kind of felt like, damn man, like I don't want to see Jay go. I really feel like he could keep going, especially leaving on such a high. Like you're like, damn man, this is it. I really want more Jay. This was the album when I heard it. I was like, if Jay don't want to do music no more, I'm good. I'm good. Like this was even when we got 444. As amazing as 444 is, and I'm glad that he didn't stop here and we got that album. Even with it as amazing as that one was, Magna Carta still had me like, unless you going through stuff, with in your marriage that would aspire something like this, or it'd be, you don't want that from Jay. 5, 6 albums in. So to be honest, like I was still feeling like because of how disappointed I was in this album, I was still feeling like if Jay didn't want to do music no more, I was cool. That's how I knew this was Jay's worst album, because this was when I was like, I think I'm done with new Jay music. This was the album that made me done with new Jay music. So with that being said, where would I rank this? See, this was all right. I'm gonna put this one. I'm gonna put this one bad and not trash. I just feel like this album's bad. Uh, I wouldn't call it complete garbage because there's at least On the Run, Crown, and there's like some nice production and stuff. But again, like it says a lot when the worst thing about the album is the artist, the main artist that this album is made by. So that's why I was like, yeah, this has to be his worst album. All right, yo, let's get an obvious one out the way. This album is so bad that his very next album was a response to how bad this album was. This album is so bad, I dedicated an entire podcast on it and did it with my dad to discuss how bad this album was. If we're just being completely honest, Eminem has been kind of on a decline for a while. I would probably say after Encore, it's been very spotty at best. But this was when it was like, because it's like in the beginning, Relapse was bad, but you could probably blame it on the drugs, and you could blame it on this, that, and the third. And then he kind of bounced back for Recovery. But then this happened. Everything about this album was bad. Like, I will give him props. Not only was he like using his platform to speak against something, the presidency of Trump and just kind of like the stuff that was going on, but he also recognized, hey, I am a super popular white rapper. I am one of the most popular rappers in the world, and there's a lot of his fans that don't even like hip hop, but they love Eminem. And he knew that like he could use his platform and use his status to speak against a lot of the bullshit that he was seeing going on. So I will give him props, but that's basically where it stops. And like his heart was in the right place. Execution was not there. So, and I there's nothing on here that I could even vouch for. I'd have to put this in garbage. Yeah, Pat. And like I'm not one of those. I'm with you, Pat. Like this was definitely rock bottom. I'm not one of those people that hate on M just because he white. I'm not, he's not. He's probably one of the biggest artists that has struggled to kind of keep up and change with the times and evolve and adapt. to changing like changing times and things like that. So I will give him so he hasn't been the best, but this is when I knew like with Jay, we might not need any more new Eminem music. And he's still a great rapper, but actually no, that music to be murdered by, whatever that album was actually pretty dope. I will give him props on that one. I wasn't really feeling Kamikaze. Like there's a couple joints on Kamikaze that was cool, but for the most part, it definitely wasn't something I was gonna go back to. But I don't know that music to be murdered by. I think that's what it was called. Was really dope, and I think a lot of people hated on it. But I think it was because of how bad his output had been up until that point. So, but yeah, so I'm gonna have to probably. This is probably like of the three garbage albums. This is probably the one that I would probably say was the like worst listening experience. So I'd probably have to put that one as the worst album. But no, actually, yeah, I gotta move this around. Yeah, move that. So yeah, I'm gonna put M as the worst. Then honestly, never mind, and then Nasir. So what we got left? Oh, this might be the most controversial one of them all, but I'm gonna go ahead and do this one. Now, I mean, this is really not a controversial take. Only because when I say this is the worst album of his catalog, I'm saying it because Kendrick Lamar, there's really little to no flaws in his catalog, even his early work. Like, because I'm not counting mixtapes. I'm not counting because I didn't count the lost tapes with Nas, like Lost Tapes 2. So I'm definitely not going to like pick on Untitled Unmastered. So that only leaves Section 80, Good Kid, Mad City, To Pimp a Butterfly, Damn, and Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. That it really just leaves those. And of those five albums, I would probably say this is the worst album. It's not by any measurement is it a terrible album or a bad album, but it is the worst of a list of phenomenal albums. Oh yeah, you said we got a debate, Pat. Okay, so what would you think would be his worst album of the five albums that he's put out? To Pimp a Butterfly, Good Kid, Mad City, Section 80, Damn, and Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. Oh, no, I mean that's what I said, Pat. Like I was basically saying how he has really nothing but great albums. I just had to pick the what I would consider the worst album out of his album, his catalog basically. And this is probably and it's a few reasons. One, like again, double albums are really tricky to pull off. And I feel like he did an admirable job. I wouldn't call this the best double album. Um, but it's he definitely did a lot better than a lot of artists have done when it comes to double albums. But there's still a lot of stuff on here that I don't like. Um, First of all, I Crown. I don't know what Crown is. It's probably the one song where I listened to it when I first heard it. I didn't like it, and it has not grown on me. Cause I didn't like the song with Kodak when I first heard it, but it's grown on me. Wasn't really a big fan of Auntie Diaries when I first heard it. Like I get the message, but I wasn't really feeling the song. Still don't play it, but like the times that I have heard it, I have definitely come around to it as far as on an enjoyable level. Like before, I'd skip it immediately. Now I can let it play, but I'm not going to. I'm not going to it. And I think Worldwide Steppers is another one. Actually, and there are a lot of people that love this song. I don't really like. I don't really like the song with Summer Walker and I think it's called Purple Heart. I don't like the song with Summer Walker and Ghostface. And you would think with that combination, I would like it. I don't know what it is. It's something about that song that just don't hit my ear. I also don't like the song with Blast like that. Like I listen to it, but it's definitely not a track that I would go to. And that's another thing too. Like this a Kendrick Lamar album, I listen to from start to finish, no problem. Um, I think this is the first time. This is the only album where I'm definitely picking and choosing tracks to listen to above others. Like I love N95. I love uh what's the song? Rich Spirit. I love Savior. I love Mr. Morale. I love Count Me Out. Oh, Count Me Out is beautiful. Like I love that song. So yeah, some really phenomenal stuff on here. And even with like some of the messaging and stuff like Auntie Diaries, I get down with the message. I get down with what you're trying to say. Some of the execution I'm not really a big fan of. And honestly, and I understand it's probably like a deeper meaning to it, but I just didn't like Kodak being so heavily featured on this album with what he's trying to convey on this album with kind of endorsing somebody like Kodak. Like I just in general I have a problem with artists sticking so closely to other artists that when you really think about it, what you're talking about is very like and what they're like hanging out with them or rocking with them and like working with them is very contradictory as far as messaging go uh to what you're doing, and it was very glaringly obvious on this album. Like I know people are trying to say, well, he's trying to, he's connecting, trying to say that we all the same. Like, yeah, I feel like there's a little bit more nuance in it than a lot of people were trying to look into. They just wanted to justify the shit, and I just don't agree with it. So that's why that was one of the things about this album that really like kind of put me off. I don't want to get into it too much, but that's just another thing that really bothered me, and that's why I don't really find myself returning to a lot of the tracks on here. So yeah, there's just this the only album where I would probably say is not a lot of replay value for me. It's it's a lot of like picking and choosing what I like and discarding the rest, and it's just some very like weird messaging in here that just kind of puts me off. But for the most part, I mean, I'm gonna still put it in the great album category because it's still a great body of work in both messaging and like even with some of the songs on there. But this it's just a lot less enjoyability for it in it than his previous works. So that's why I had to put that one in this. So we only got two more albums. I'm already over the hour mark, so I'm gonna try to keep these brief. Um, it's kind of like the same thing with Kendrick, and considering Pac's influence on Kendrick, this is fitting. I'm gonna keep this one short and sweet. The only reason why I picked this album above any other Pac album, I'm not picking, like I said earlier, I'm not doing posthumous albums. I don't know if I said that earlier actually. I didn't want to do any posthumous albums just for the simple fact that a posthumous album, um, was done without the artist. When those songs were just recorded in the vault, but there was no plan, no layout for an album. So I didn't want to, I don't want to put that on the artist. But so I'm only sticking with Tupacalypse Now to All Eyes on Me. You might maybe could count Machiavelli, but I ain't gonna do that one. So out of all of them though, I felt like this is the worst one, but it's really only the worst one because a it's not aged as well. And I know you're probably like, this is the album that it came out in like 91, 92. But you could go to Strictly for My Niggas, and I feel like, and that only came out like maybe 2 years after Tupacalypse Now, and I feel like there's a lot more replay value in those songs. Like this is the album that got Brenda Got a Baby. You can't take that away. But songs like Trapped and what's let me pull that up. Let me pull that up actually. Um for one, like while I'm looking this up, another point is that it's not an album that it's not an album where you really get to see the best of Pac. Like he would grow into it. Like there's some artists that put out their very best work out the gate, but then there's some artists where you just hear the potential. Like you hear where they could be, and with Pac you would eventually get that with albums like Me Against the World and All Eyes on Me. But but this one, he ain't quite there yet. Like he ain't quite there yet, but he would get there. So yeah, it's got some dope songs like If My Homies Call, like I said, Brenda's Got a Baby. You got like Soldier Story. But then it's other songs like Trapped, where like it's the messaging is cool, but the beat and the flow and everything, it just sounds so dated. Rebel of the Underground, Something Wicked. Like I enjoy those songs, don't get me wrong, but like it's not essential Pac. It's not essential Pac. Like really, when I think about the best of Pac, you really only gonna get Brenda's Got a Baby, and then maybe If My Homies Call. But that's only if the track list is extended to like maybe 20, 25 tracks or something. Like when you really think about essential Pac, it's not on this album. So, but that's the only reason. So what I want to do is I'm gonna put this one in the good but not great album, because it's still a good album. It's still a good album for the time. Still a coming out in 91, 92. What does it say this album came out? Yeah, November 91. So it's still a great body of work for that time period. Just hasn't aged the best, and it's not like peak Pac, and it's just you're really only gonna go back for Brenda's Got a Baby, and maybe If My Homies Call. So that's why that album is like this. And here we got the last album. Should have known this one was coming. Now I remember. So it's funny about this album. The funny thing about this album, about Rebirth by Lil Wayne, is that it was definitely a guilty pleasure of mine. Like songs like Prom Queen were interesting listens. I won't say that I was a big fan of it, but just because it was the singing of the auto tune, it was just the novelty of Lil Wayne doing rock music was just interesting, intriguing, and shit. But it's probably like good for like one listen just to hear what it would sound like, and then after that, you're never going back to this shit again. You're never going back to this shit again. And like yesterday, I put this on right before I put on the Sunfire album to go to the store. So I, just so I could research for this, I put this album on, and when I tell you, I could barely get through a minute of majority of the songs on here. Like, and I may not be the biggest fan of. Okay, hold on, Pat. You said that Rebirth got some slappers. What songs? Like, okay, so Rebirth does have Drop the World, and On Fire is cool. Definitely wouldn't listen to it more than a few times, but like, it's the only song on here that I can listen to the whole thing. After that, I don't know what you hearing. I really don't understand what you hearing after those two songs. Drop the World was dope. On Fire was dope. It was cool. I won't say dope. It was cool. The irony, right? It's on fire, but it's cool. After that, though, I can't listen to none of this shit. But it's funny because I actually watched a video. This channel called Hip Hop Madness. It was from a few months ago, but I rewatched it for this stream, and it was talking about how influential this album was. Even in that video, they called it like the worst album or one of the worst albums from Lil Wayne's catalog. But how it's influenced people like Uzi and like Lil Yachty and Playboy Cardi and like all these other artists. But like outside of so it has its influence. It did like birth. It did help rebirth. It helped birth another a whole subset of artists, but it doesn't make it a good album. It doesn't even make it a listenable album, to be honest. Yeah, man. Like I was saying earlier, like Drop the World's the only one. I forgot about Drop the World. Didn't even remember that this was on this album. I thought it was on I Am Not a Human Being. So when I heard it on this, I was like, okay, cool. And it's kind of like the Honestly Nevermind thing. I talked about that earlier in the stream. How like the two songs that I would even listen to on Honestly Nevermind are the ones where Drake is doing what he does best, which is rapping, which is Sticky and Jimmy Cooks at the end. Rebirth, the best songs on here is when he's rapping. When he's not doing the singing auto-tune, it's not as rock influenced as it is hip hop influenced. It's songs like Drop the World and On Fire. Everything else, it's just complete, especially now. Like, when we talk about albums and songs that have not aged well, Rebirth has not aged well at all. Like, it had a certain novelty to it. When you were like, oh, okay, is Lil Wayne doing a rock album? I'm curious. After the first listen, that kills all of that novelty, and it's just, I can't do it. I can't do it. So what y'all think? Before I pick it, because this is the last one, I'm gonna ask y'all. Because it's going in either bad, but not trash or garbage. So which one do y'all think? Should this go on? Should this be trash, or should this be garbage, or bad but not trash or garbage? Because I'm curious to see what y'all think. Because Pat said there's some slappers. There's some slappers on here. Outside of those two tracks, and one of them is just cool. I can't like vouch for anything else on this album. Especially listening to it with 2023 eyes. 2023 ears, not eyes. 2023 ears. Like, oh man, I'm with you. I'm with you. I honestly thought it was gonna be better. Than it ended up being. But going back and revisiting it, it was bad. I'd probably say I'd put it over Nasir. Nah, yeah, I can't do that either. Hold on, let me. I'm gonna put it over Honestly Nevermind and Revival, but it's really because of the influence that it had on a certain generation of artists. And at least not Nas, at least Wayne got back into form. He stepped outside of his comfort zone for a little bit, and when that shit didn't work, he got back on what he does best. And like, I respect the fact that he realized, yeah, this ain't working. Let me just do what I do best. And we back to where we are now. We about to get to Carter 6 soon. So yeah, that's my tier list. So great, the only great album, Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. Good but not great. Tupacalypse Now. Could be better is Ye. Meh was For Your Eyes Only with J. Cole. I just think it's not bad. It's not good either. It's just kind of forgettable. The only bad albums I put was Bad Not Trash, was Jay-Z's Magna Carta, and The Dogfather by Snoop. And we got the garbage pile. Eminem Revival, Honestly Nevermind by Drake, Lil Wayne Rebirth, and Nasir by Nas, produced by Kanye West. So yo, let me know what y'all think about the tier list, man. I actually had a lot of fun talking about this. And I did say I excluded, just anybody that's joining late, I excluded groups. I excluded collab albums with any of these artists or anybody else for the solo artists. So, no Best of Both Worlds, no Watch the Throne or anything like that, which those wouldn't, or at least Watch the Throne wouldn't be on this list regardless. But just saying, I wasn't going to do collab albums. And it had to be artists that at least had 3 albums. They have 3 or more albums to pick from. No mixtapes, no EPs, nothing like that. Just straight full length LPs. So, and these are just 10 artists that I just picked out of a hat. So, if there's other artists y'all want to see me do rankings for, or if y'all want to see that tier list for groups, maybe even do tier lists for collab albums in hip hop, or maybe we could even do other genres. I do listen to other genres, especially R&B. I do a lot of like ambient stuff, but my expertise is hip hop, obviously. So I may not be the best person for that, but if you want to see it anyway, just to kind of get my novice opinion on it, we could do that too. But yeah, so this is the tier list. Let me know if I got it right, if I got it wrong, what you want to see next. But yeah, man, we about to go ahead and end the stream. Make sure y'all like the video, comment, follow me on Instagram at the 1430 podcast. Same thing on Facebook. And until next time, I'll see y'all next week. Peace.